Welcome back. The Water and Sanitation Minister Senzo Mchunu is rubbishing reports that we face a water crisis. Mchunu says the rains over the last few months have helped remarkably to replenish reservoirs and that most dams are overflowing. He spoke earlier about the state of our water resources as we mark World Water Day.
We don't have water crisis in the country at the moment. We don't have. That is referring to availability of water in the country. This is best illustrated, among other things, by the fact that during this rainy season, most of the dams in the country are overflowing. And one newspaper captured it by saying, dams are full, but taps are dry. It illustrates very clearly what's happening, so that you don't have a crisis of no water in your dams or in your rivers.
The Minister speaking earlier today, Benoît is the CEO of the SA Water Chamber. Benoît, good afternoon to you. Do you agree with what the Minister says? We've got overflowing dams. The problem is getting that water, purified water, to the taps of people who need it.
Yes, hi, Stephen. It's generally the statement's correct, except for a little exception that's in the Eastern Cape, where Mandela Bay has not had its rains for the last 2 years. But bar that, yeah, the dams are pretty full, and that's due to us having built the dams over the last 100 years in the right places. But it is an abnormal rainy season, so we get these every 7 to 10 years. So maybe it becomes a new normal. We're not too sure about that yet. But the problem does lie, and it's not really getting the bulk water from the dams to the municipalities. It's really getting it from the municipalities to the citizens. That's where the biggest issue is. And there's also the ongoing issue with rural water and rural water settlements that have never been provided, and that's due to economics. If nobody's paying for the service, you can't provide. There's not enough money in the fiscus to provide rural folk with bulk water and tap water and waterborne sanitation and the likes. So it's quite a complex, it's quite a complex scenario. But it is an irony that our batteries are full, so to speak, and we have water restrictions still in Johannesburg. We're in level 1 restrictions. And that's because we have allocated and over-allocated our water in South Africa with a reasonable level of certainty. So we have to resort to alternatives, and that's part of the master plan.
Well, all of this boils down to, and I hate it when things boil down to local government, Benoît, but this is where we are, because we have so many problems in local government, electricity among them as well. It wouldn't really help to take it away from local government, would it? Because it does need to be done by someone on the ground. And what it tells you is getting the actual water into someone's dwelling, wherever they live, that is where the real problem lies. It's that technicality, getting the water in a pipe that doesn't leak to the right place.
100% right. And it's local government globally is the water service provider, the electricity service provider, etc. in general. And in actual fact, most water utilities look after bulk water and so the wholesale and the retail side of things, which in South Africa is being touted as a possibility, but we have to fix local municipalities. There's no reason not to. So one of the things that came out of the summit that talks to this is the water service authorities. We've got about 150 in the country in round numbers, and we don't have the technical staff and the financial staff and the legal staff to capacitate them. So the DWS is busy at the moment looking at how to bring that down to 50, so that we now need a third of the resources and hopefully can fill those up. It's still at local government level, so district municipalities and at metros, who are the water service authorities, but that's constitutionally mandated. So we have to fix them. And why can some metros and some towns and cities have water security and not others? We can do it. It's not beyond humanity. It's a matter of governance and priority. And like we see, generally speaking, it's not just the water. It's the potholes, electricity, and waste services. They are all as bad or as good in conjunction. You never see one of them, out of kilt. So we have to fix that issue. And it's we as a country have to fix it. And if we fix our local government, we will fix a lot of our water-related issues at the same time.
There's also a huge element of sort of big-scale planning. You made the point a few moments ago that we've built the right dams in the right places over the last 100 years. That's true. But people are moving. Both the Western Cape and Gauteng are seeing their populations increasing, particularly in the Western Cape, but I think in Gauteng too. There is some evidence of global climate change to make those areas drier. That means we need more storage capacity, and I would imagine deeper dams rather than bigger dams, more Sterkfontein, less Vaal Dam, to make sure that we can actually have enough water for a growing population.
There's two items to that. Firstly, we are dammed out. We don't have the rain to fill our dams up. So we've got, in our dams, we've got 2.5 years worth of average rainfall, and the rainfall is changing too. So we have about 50% of our rainfall over 8 to 10% of our land area, and that's moving around. So new dams is not going to help us. The second part of it is that the evaporation rate in South Africa is roughly 50 to 80%, and it's increasing with climate change. Forget what caused it, it's increasing with climate change. So storing subsurface water does not help. Sterkfontein, yes, is up top of the mountains, evaporation is very low, but there's no river feeding it. It's actually pumped from the Tugela over the escarpment there as a last resort battery storage, for Gauteng. So where the answer lies is leave the dams as we have them, because moving them is not really feasible. But what we need to do is to start. We don't necessarily have to store, and this is the irony with reuse. You reuse as you need into existing distribution systems, and on the coast you desalinate. You reuse too, but you desalinate. The sea level, it's rising, it's not going down. So the sea is going nowhere, and it's a natural cycle anyway, the desalination. We just biomimic it, we speed it up, and you desalinate what you need. And those systems can run constantly it's at scale, at utility scale, like we do with renewable energy. And what happens is, and you don't switch them off, like we've done and Sydney has done, you keep them going all the time so that the natural reserve, water reserve, can then build itself up. But we will never use all the water in the sea. It's absolutely impossible. And that technology at the moment globally is cheaper. It's getting to about 30%, 20-30% less of our current surface water storage and treatment costs. So it is cheaper, and it is constantly available. So it decouples all the coast. It will decouple our entire coast from the vagaries of cold fronts and rain and the like. But what it does then, it frees up the water that's in the rivers and dams upstream for upstream users, which are generally speaking some of the towns, but also agriculture and some industry. So there's a lot of win-wins, but this is why we've got to stop the talk shops and we've got to do the action shops, and we've started with that now, and we've got to move, because that infrastructure in the world takes 5 to 10 years to build. South Africa is not exactly fast when it comes to big infrastructure, so we have to find ways of expediting this. And I believe that we do have the skills and we're able to do that, and we'll import and plug the gaps where we have, and we need to start moving. So Cape Town is the first move at the moment, but eThekwini's also got plans. And those plans are in the design and licensing processes. So it's not talk. It's part of going forward. We need to get Nelson Mandela Bay doing it properly, and Buffalo City and the likes putting in 50, 100 megalitre a day, or 50 to 100 millilitres a day. That will be about a third of their water. And now all of a sudden rain becomes an academic issue, because it's going to top up, where you need it. So the technology is there. There's nothing wrong with that. It's the importance, and this is why today and this week is important. It's World Water Day, and there's water all over the place, but the poor don't have it, and a lot of industry don't have it. And we have all the technology to do it. We just have to make it a political priority. And I'm glad to say it is becoming one, because people are demonstrating all over the place, and the local elections were really centered around water and service delivery and basic services. So I think we're making progress.
Benoît, that's the first time that I've ever heard that suggestion that you make, which I fully accept what you say, that actually desalinating technology now means it would be cheaper to use a desalination plant to give Nelson Mandela Bay Metro water than to actually have a water catchment plant, to have a system of dams and purification. I mean, that's a massive game changer.
Yes, and it's the disruption started in the Middle East that had no water. But what they did is they didn't desalinate with membranes, they desalinated thermally by evaporating, so using kettles. The Afrikaans word is a kettle for a boiler. And what happened is they used that very cheap energy, so it was 2 or 3 cents, a kilowatt hour, and they evaporated the water, and they actually had the power station right next to it, fueled by gas and oil and all the likes. They've converted now all their new demand through to seawater reverse osmosis, so the membrane mechanical process. And that process has gone down by virtually 80 to 90% in energy demand. So instead of it being 10 to 20 rand a cubic meter, it's now down to something like 25 to 30 US cents, so 4 rand 50 a cubic meter. Our average surface water costs, so you take the dam, the abstraction costs, the bulk water transfer to the water board and delivering to a city, those costs are in the order on average in South Africa between 8 and 12 rand now and escalating at 450% per 10 years. So the seawater desalination is not only cheaper, we've got to do a few plants to get to those price points. It's exactly like renewable energy. It's renewable water. All water is renewable. We're just accelerating that process. So it's like going, from incandescents to LEDs. The more you do, the cheaper it becomes. Now we have another one that's come in, and this really disrupted it, is that we are able to use renewable energy at utility scale to drive these desalination plants. So instead of paying 1 rand 50 to 2 rand to Eskom, for example, you now pay 44 cents, okay, to an IPP, or you make your own IPP. So there's all of these disruptors that we didn't have, let's say, 10 years ago. So we have a water crisis, and a water delivery crisis, to use the right word, and we have the solutions, and in actual fact, we're driving those prices down. So there's no cost attached to it, no premium attached to it. It's business as usual. The only thing is that we've got water security, and we don't need to store the amount of water that we have. So use existing storage rate. There's no reason to be water insecure, but we have to start with the work, and that's the difficulty because the 3 tiers of government are independent. So it's quite difficult.
All right, Benoît Leroy, I've learned something. Thank you very much indeed. CEO of the SA Water Chamber, which shows you how quickly things are moving. Well, in a moment,